Just have to remember to unpause the recording.
Welcome to Zoom. Enter your meeting ID followed by pound. Enter your participant ID. You have entered the meeting as a panelist. Attendees can now hear you speak. This meeting is being recorded.
Good morning.
Where did you live?
Is that, Lori, thank you.
Good morning.
Guys. So, Sean, you got your little rush into the office, huh?
I went ahead and came in.
Yeah, that's great. And that's my message to you, because Jessica called me also. So,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, I shared my home phone with her, so.
Oh,
she
okay.
called. But thank you.
All right. Hello, Jennifer.
So I can't get my video to work. It goes on and off and on and off and on and off.
I thought you were just canceling it. There you're on again.
I know, and then it just immediately cancels itself.
And then it cancels, huh? Like you're
Huh.
canceled again.
I'm canceled. Well, I'll figure it out.
You're back again.
I guess it's going to be what it is, Art.
Another fine day, my friend.
Oh, yeah. I'm loving it. How are you doing?
Everything's good.
Good. Glad to hear it. We're going to get a
Art, can you confirm if you can hear me? This is Hassan.
Yes, I
Yes,
can hear
it's,
you.
Black on the screen?
Trustee Farahi. Anybody else with a message?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Sean Carey. I'm the Vice Chair of the Reno Tahoe Airport Authority's Board of Trustees. I'm stepping in today for Jessica Sparaza. Our chairman is a little bit under the weather with a little bit of a scratchy throat. She's doing fine, and we're going to miss her today. I'd like to begin the meeting with a roll call. Madam Clerk?
Okay. Trustee Caraselli? Was he having trouble?
He said he heard the whole meeting, but no one could hear him.
Oh, do we see him online?
No, we don't even see him now, but he just said he's there.
Okay,
He was online earlier.
okay. Trustee Carey?
Here.
Trustee Chaplin?
Promoting her right now.
Okay. She is here. Trustee Farahi?
Here.
Trustee Gianoli? Here. Okay. Trustee Jay?
Present.
Trustee Rose?
Present.
Chair Safraza? We know she's here.
I'm here, thank you.
And Trustee Berber?
Here.
Okay. We have a quorum.
We do have a quorum. Thank you, Madam Clerk.
If I
Our next item.
may I ask a quick question to Marty. Marty, is there a way to set up the Zoom so that it doesn't require each of us to have to be admitted into the Zoom, but we can have an individual passcode for each of us to be able to enter the meeting without, again, you having to admit us as a speaker?
Want me to answer that?
That is,
Trustee Farahi, this is Art Brown. It's because we're doing a webinar, it requires panelists, and panels have to be promoted.
we can send, a special email to each trustee, but they have to use that specific login. So if you're logging in from another link, like if you get it from the website or if you get it from the agenda, it will not log you in as a panelist. But when the webinar is set up, we can set it up so all of you are panelists, and it will automatically send you a very special email, but you have to use that login. So, and it will go out whenever the webinar is set up, so it might go out a little early. I just wouldn't want it to get lost. So yes, we can talk about that. There's a way to do it.
Yeah, we also tried to start this at least a few minutes early to try to get you in a little early.
Thank you.
Anything further? We'll return then to public comment. At this time, is there any public comment?
No, there's none in the chat.
Okay.
Vice Chair, I do have two public comments that I received by email yesterday. One from Stan White, one from Mike Harrison. They've been sent to all of the board members and entered into the record.
Appreciate your efforts there. Thank you very much. Trustees, we now move to the approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion?
Richard J. moved to accept the agenda as presented.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion will carry. Thank you. Next, we move to items of special interest. Item 4.1 is awards and special recognitions. We have none today. And 4.2 is in, I'm sorry, Darren?
We do have one, sir.
I apologize.
Oh, it's coming up.
Oh.
It's coming up. You don't have a cheat sheet, sorry.
Sorry. We'll get to you, Robert.
Let me give you a cheat sheet.
Okay, we're in good shape on item 4.1. Item 4.2, employee recognitions, we also have none, which will take us to tenant communications and acknowledgements. Darren.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. So I will get it right this time. So we are saying goodbye today to our area port director with Customs and Border Protection, Robert Arroyo. Robert, I just have obviously not known him very long, but I've enjoyed getting to meet him and talk with him. I just want to express, on behalf of the Airport Authority, our appreciation. I'm going to turn over to Brian here in just a minute. But for your service here and everything you've done to help us with Volaris and the international service, understanding how important that is and how much we appreciate our relationship with Customs and Border Protection. So with that, I'm going to turn over to Brian, who's got a little expression of gratitude on our behalf. Brian.
We just honored you, Robert, 2 months ago with our Client Awesome Award, which I'm sure you recall for your outstanding service to the airport. But we do want to remind people the difference that you've made since you've come here. We're saying goodbye to somebody today who made a difference here at the airport, and that's a powerful statement because you really did make a difference for not only the airport but our community, and especially for our Hispanic community. And it's greatly appreciated on behalf of the staff and the Board of Trustees. You're a bold, brash New Yorker with a great sense of duty, but also a terrific sense of humor, which will be missed. When our Guadalajara flight began, not to bring back tough memories, but we had 4-hour wait times in Customs, and it was a great challenge for the Customs agents themselves, for our community, but especially for our passengers who were welcoming to the United States of America. And we tried as an airport to make change there. We put together a customer service team that would bring snacks and water. They were bilingual, and they would sing Mexican folk songs while they were in the line, but the 4-hour waits were a great challenge. The city came to us asking us for change. The Catholic Church locally came to us asking for change, and we finally got it in Robert. He came in, and we didn't know what we had. We had this New Yorker walk in the door with his personality on his first day, and we were all shocked because we would get alerts on our phones that would tell us when the flight had been cleared. And, the flight would come in the early afternoon when we're used to getting an evening alert that the flight had been cleared 4 or 5 hours later. And my phone went off 45 minutes after the flight had landed. And Trish Tucker ran into my office and said, "Is this correct?" And we were shocked. And Robert cleared the first flight in 45 minutes, which was record time, truly amazing, but it wasn't a one-time deal. Robert made a difference day after day after day, and was also a champion of anything on this airport involving safety and security. You were a true leader while you were here. Your presence has been greatly appreciated, and your service to our country, keeping us safe, is greatly appreciated by everyone in this room and everyone on our Zoom call. So thank you, sir, for your service, and we wish you great luck and wish you well in the state of Florida.
Well, Brian, thank you. I don't know where to go from there. I came in, almost 2 years ago, and I promised you we're going to increase the international travel. And we did that. No one seen COVID-19 coming, but we were up to 5 days a week seasonally. I had the pleasure of seeing Trustee Jay come through. I couldn't get him to sing, but he was there.
I tried.
Yes, New Yorker sometimes is not a bad thing, because it gets things done on occasion, and you know how to use it correctly. I want to thank my staff, because without them believing in me, we couldn't reach those 45-minute times. Even with the current situation with COVID and the new, kiosk, as I will call it, the processing times is I still have them down to where they're acceptable. With that, I want to thank the board, everyone zooming in, everyone here. Darren, it was a pleasure, the short time, but I could tell in meeting with you that there's more changes coming, and all for the better. The one thing I'm sorry I wasn't able to bring to you was the facial recognition, because that even speeds up the time in and out much quicker. They loaded enough planes in San Francisco in under 15 minutes with the facial recognition. So I'm sure I'm speaking with Darren that that's something that's going to be coming. So I'm excited for you guys for that, for additional flights. I cannot tell you what's going to happen down the road in my position. Effective next week, one of my local officers will be the interim. Mr. Garrett Mertens, I gave him vacation this week because him and his wife just had a new baby a couple of months ago. So I set it up with the clerk next meeting, so you'll meet him. I believe he's been on some Zoom meetings with you already. He'll be the interim. They will select an individual from outside the area, and that's what I've been told. So what you get is questionable. It won't be a New Yorker probably. but feel free. My email will stay the same. My cell phone number will change. Feel free if you have questions, concerns. Because I'm not here doesn't mean I still will not help Reno Tahoe in their endeavors. And I thank you once again.
Thank you.
Do any other trustees have comments?
Just say one quick thing, Robert, it was a pleasure working with you, thank you. When we came in that day, that was a smooth operation, very fast, very efficient. Your staff was very courteous, and it's a tribute to the leadership there, so you're going to be missed. Now, when you're in Florida, remember, they don't have mountains there.
Thank you. Thank you for an amazing job.
No, thank you all for what you do.
Yeah. And Robert, it's been a pleasure. I think we got to spend quite a bit of time together, and I very much enjoyed every conversation with you. You taught me, certainly more than I taught you, about Customs and Border Patrol, but of course also just travel in general and security of our nation. And thank you for your dedication, for your service. It was a pleasure to get to know you. You always have a home here in Reno, and we'll look forward to seeing you, maybe not in the outfit, or not in your uniform, but in some more casual clothes when we come visit you on the East Coast.
Thank you.
Any other trustees? Okay, thank you, Robert, for your service.
Thank you.
Next, we have Melissa Ogg Farnsworth.
She is going to be presenting from Zoom. And we will be pulling up some slides for her.
What slide?
I'll show you. Is Melissa, do we have her on? Oh, it looks like she's muted.
Melissa, if you're on, press star 6 on your phone. Then.
I just did. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Please go ahead.
Good morning, everybody. I'm sorry we don't have cameras on our computers, so it's actually probably best for you all. But anyway, I just was asked to kind of present on some of the things that we covered during the triennial. So I thought maybe I would just kind of let you know what our objectives were, and then also some of the things that really benefited my team and, of course, the other airlines. So what our objective was, as the air carriers, we wanted to try and stand up our friends and family room and our passenger room. And we did that on a very, very small scale. I pulled just a handful of leaders and some of our agents that are key players in our station emergency program. So in doing that, what we managed to do was obviously waited for the ring down on the call. We all reported to our emergency control room. We did a small briefing there. We allowed our emergency kit leaders, if you will, to actually retrieve their kits, their backpacks is what we have, and actually do a briefing for our employees in that room, and then actually take the backpacks and go up to our makeshift passenger friends and family room, which was in the HR training room, or excuse me, in the board room, which was really, really beneficial. Not only did they get to experience the weight of those backpacks, but they actually got to do some hands-on with really what's inside those. We do training every year. We have tabletops every year, but they never have, in many years, had a chance to just do some hands-on with what is in the kits. So once we reached the rooms, we also had an opportunity to document the people that we were receiving. So we had sign-in forms. We had a few people just playing as passengers and friends and family. So we had an opportunity to fill out forms, sign people in. We also had an opportunity to document the information we were receiving from the EOC, which was very, very beneficial. And then they also had an opportunity to stand up in front of the entire group and give a briefing. So that was really beneficial for our team. We haven't had an opportunity to do that in several years. And then we also had an opportunity to give information to the EOC from what we were potentially receiving from headquarters. So the whole thing was actually great for my team to have the hands-on. A couple of things that really helped us out was having the visual of the site even though it was via Zoom, it was very beneficial to have that during a drill so they could see what was going on. And it was also beneficial to have the EOC on Zoom so we could actually see who's in there, who's giving information, and who we're speaking to. So overall, I think everything went really well for our group. If we can continue to do those visuals for our team, it's very helpful. I'm not sure if Captain Jogsma or Chief Tongate are on the call, but I think they did a really good job setting up the emergency drill and all the, all the visual factors that they had for the folks of us that were on Zoom. So we do appreciate that. Do you guys have any questions?
Are there any questions from the trustees? Darren, do you have any comments?
I just want to express my appreciation to Melissa and the Southwest team for being willing to stand up to Friends and Family Room for any emergency exercise. This is a really important component. It's one that doesn't always get exercised enough. We tend to focus what's happening on the airfield and the emergency response, which you'll hear more about later from Chief Tongate, but that is of course really important, but the friends and family component to any aircraft emergency is critical. So just really thanks, Melissa, for you and your team and making it real and for the effort that you put into it.
Thank you. And if I have, can I take 2 seconds of you all's time? This is not related to what I was supposed to talk about, but I just want you all to be hopefully aware that we are looking at really solid bookings for November. So, and as of right now, we are holding 20 departures out of here. And we are hopeful that when the all the changes are made by the end of September, that we will maintain very, very close to that. So we have a lot of reason to be very hopeful. Our loads were supposed to drop this week, system-wide, and we have not dropped at all. Every flight has been full. So, and we are full through the weekend. So things are actually looking really good for us. We should know by tomorrow if we will add another flight for October. So keep one finger crossed at least. So things are looking better. So I thought I'd share that with all of you.
Let's wait. One extra flight. Whoa, fantastic. Let's keep that trend going. Breaking news. That's what we can do. There you go. Get on social media. Where's Brian?
Congratulations, Melissa. Anything else from the trustees?
No, that's it. I appreciate you all including me in this.
Thank you. We move to item 5.1, which is the approval of the minutes from August 13th. It's for possible action. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
I have a motion from Trustee Gianoli and a second by Trustee Rhodes. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Okay, that motion carries unanimously. We now move to consent items, which is item 6 on our agenda. We have none today, which will take us to our business items. These are for discussion and possible items. The first one is item 7.1, and this is the authorization for the President and CEO to enter into a right of entry and hold harmless agreement for a fantastic new development. And I'm going to turn now to Aurora.
Good morning. Thank you very much, Vice Chair Carey, trustees, Aurora Ritter, Manager of Airport Economic Development. For the record, and before I begin, I'd just like to take a moment to introduce a couple of guests that we have here in person with us in the HR training room. We have Par Tolles, who is the Chief Executive Officer of Tolles Development Company, and we have David Meading, who is the Chief Development Officer for Tolles Development Company. So we are very excited to bring this forward. The purpose of this action is to conclude a best and final offer solicitation, or a BASO, and to authorize the President and CEO to execute 2 agreements with Tolles Development Company, or TDC. The first of which would be a right of entry hold harmless agreement, which would give TDC a 90-day period to conduct some additional due diligence. Following that due diligence period, this action would authorize the President and CEO to negotiate final terms and execute a 50-year ground lease. And this action also supports strategic priority number 5, which is financial diversification and growth. For a little orientation as to where the property is located, you can see on the bigger map shown there in blue, this site is located directly south of the airport on the southeast corner of McCarran Boulevard and Airway Drive. It's approximately a 50-acre site, and some of the attributes of the site is that it's one of the last remaining contiguous parcels in the Reno area. It has great visibility, good connectivity to the highways. It does also have some constraints, which one of the biggest ones is building height restrictions due to the one engine and operable procedure. A portion of the property, about 2 acres on the northeast corner, are in flood zone A, so they cannot be developed. Any developer needs to work very closely with the city of Reno to determine what potential ingress, egress on McCarran and Airway would be. And also, there is a potential for an extended FAA review process due to the manner and the funds that were used to purchase this site. So, how did we purchase this site? So the acquisition of the home garden subdivision properties began around 1977 after the city of Reno settled a lawsuit that was filed in 1974 by some of the homeowners in the home garden subdivision for inverse condemnation and for noise damage. So the lawsuit happened before the now Airport Authority, Reno Tahoe Airport Authority was formed in 1977. And once those parcels were obtained by the city through the inverse condemnation action, they were quitclaimed to the now Reno Tahoe Airport Authority. So we had to acquire the remainder of the parcels, and so the FAA did concur to use federal funds to acquire the remaining homes. And so during the period from 1979 to 1986, there were at least 4 FAA airport development aid grants or ADP grants, which are now known as AIP grants, that were used to purchase the remaining homes. So additional background on this property. The property has been advertised on the RTA website through local broker networks, developer networks for approximately 10 years. And while there has been some interest in the property, there has not been a project that has come to fruition. In October of 2013, there was more than one interested party in the site. So because the property has marketed for quite some time, legal counsel advised that a more narrow public solicitation would be appropriate. So we invited the interested parties to submit their best and final offer. The board did approve the best and final offer terms of the solicited proposal in January of 2014. In November of that year, we were advised by the FAA of a new one engine and operable procedure that significantly reduced the building heights. And due to the new building heights, the proposed e-commerce building type that was previously proposed was no longer viable. And after an unsuccessful attempt by the developer to try to attract a different type of client, the baffle process and the board approved terms were nullified in September of 2015. In August of 2018, we did take to the board a signed term sheet in terms of the signed LOI from another interested party, which the board approved. And then later on that year, December 2018, while the party was still in their due diligence period, they advised that they were moving in a different direction, and so they would not be executing a ground lease on this property. Beginning in 2019, there was again renewed interest in the property. So staff received multiple expressions of interest, so we once again were positioned to do a public solicitation, and once again, because it's been advertised all this time, we were able to move straight into the best and final offer process. So the solicitation was issued June 16th of 2020. There was 3 parties that were interested, so all 3 parties were invited to submit their best and final offer. As part of the solicitation, we did include the RTA preferred terms, which are terms that are comparable to ground leases that the board has previously approved. So the parties were advised that a successful proposal would contain terms most comparable to the RTA preferred terms. The BAFOs were due July 23rd of 2020. Then TDC, a teledevelopment company, received the one proposal from them, and as was outlined in the solicitation, the CEO of the Service Selection Committee. And they presented, TDC presented to the CON Development Working Group on August 11th, and the group found the proposal to meet the minimum requirements and conformed substantially with the RTA preferred terms, and so they voted unanimously to move this forward to the full board. So that is where we are today. So now we'll move into what their proposal is. So TDC proposes to develop a Class A mixed-use industrial and commercial center to be known as Airway Commerce Park. Proposed development includes approximately 812,000 square feet of building area, of course, subject to the City of Reno's Airport Safety General Overlay, standard zoning, code review, and approval. So they propose to build 3 industrial buildings for a total of 652,000 square feet, and 4 office commercial flex buildings for a total of approximately 100 square feet. And TDC's vision is to have an outside amenities that reflect a park-like atmosphere. You can see the images down below are the thought process, what Tolles envisions these buildings and the outside amenities to look like. So this is just a preliminary site plan. So as you can see, Airway Drive is located there on the bottom of the screen, with McCarran running north and south. So the smaller office commercial flex buildings would be fronting McCarran and Airway. And as you move further south on the parcel, the OEI, the building restrictions, ease up a little bit. So you can see the larger buildings are further to the south, further away from the runway. So aside from the buildings, there's also proposed to be a walking path that would run around the entire perimeter of the parcel, which would have distance markers and some outside equipment. There's also 2 outside plaza areas with benches and tables covered with pergola. All those as just being amenities for the employees of any of the tenants that would be on the site. So the business terms are as follows, and as I mentioned before, these are comparable to ground leases that have been approved in the past. So approximately the acreage would be about 48 acres after you deduct the 2 acres that are located in the flood zone. The condition would be an as-is, a 50-year term with a midterm capital refurbishment program. The land rate, rent rate is based on an April 2020 appraisal, so looking about $750,000 per year. The rent commencement would be upon first certificate of occupancy or begin the 25 months, whichever is earlier. And as I mentioned before, there is a potential for an extended FAA review process on this parcel. So due to any unavoidable delays, either by the FAA review, we would recommend an extension of this rent commencement to tie in when the final FAA approvals are received. The rent adjustment, it would be an annual CPI with a 3% cap, an appraisal every 10 years with a 5% cap. And it is important to know that these caps, all these adjustments would be based on the previous year's rent rate and would not go down. Is projected to be about $70 million. So TDC and its principals have a long development history in Northern Nevada with well-capitalized partners. For this proposed development, TDC will be partnering with Washington Capital Management, or WCAP. So the conceptual arrangement would be that WCAP would provide 90% of the capital investment, and the intent of the partnership is for TDC to develop the project, and then WCAP to buy out TDC's 10% equity after project stabilization, estimated about year 3 after construction completion. And again, this is still conceptual. The parties are still working through that exact partnership, but this is based on programs that the 2 parties have worked on together before. And WCAP did provide a letter indicating their support of the project and their intent to fund this development during the presentation. There was also a representative from WCAP present to show their support and, again, their intent to finance this project. So a little bit of information, background first on Tolles Development Company. So they were formed in 2016 with a focus on commercial real estate acquisition and development. Founder Park Tolles brings decades of experience in industrial, office, retail, and hospitality development and management. There is 10 million square feet of industrial development history, including some experience developing on RTA-owned property. They've developed the Brookside Corporate Center, which is located on Rock Boulevard. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe they was actually part of that development, helping with that on the airport side. They provided facilities to tenants such as Tesla Motors, TireRack.com, Ames Companies, SK Food Group, and Stanley Tools Company. So Washington Capital Management, some background on them. They are a 100% employee-owned Seattle, Washington-based institutional investment management firm that was founded in 1977, offer a variety of debt and equity products for various commercial projects. As of March 2020, WellCap manages over $6.5 billion in assets. They will have developed or will manage over 2 million square feet of industrial products in northern Nevada by the end of 2020. They've been investing in northern Nevada for 20 years and have a substantial history with park holds. And just some of the projects that they have worked on together here locally are they've built 6 buildings within the Sierra Corporate Center, a 610,000 square foot industrial building located in the Reno Tahoe Industrial Center that is currently leased by General Motors. And they currently have 8 investments in Reno, 4 of which are office buildings and 4 are distribution buildings with roughly a projected value of $200 million. So that brings us to the fiscal impact. So again, based on the April 2020 appraisal, the revenue would be $62,500 per month, or $750,000 per year. Over the 50-year term, there's a minimum guaranteed revenue of $36 million. Very important to note that this figure does not include any of the annual CPIs or the mark-to-market rent adjustments. So we're likely looking at a much more significant total revenue on this project. So to encourage the $70 million in capital investment, the RTA is proposing 2 standard incentives, first of which is the rent deferment that we spoke about. The other is the use of RTA-owned water rights. The RTA would provide full use of RTA-owned water rights at no additional cost to TBC up to a maximum of 0.75 acre-feet per acre of land for the entire term of the ground lease. It's important to note that TBC would have full use of these, but the RTA would retain ownership of these water rights. So these proposed standard investments incentives are also incentives that we've offered to other developers for a comparable capital investment into RTA-owned land. So with that, it is hereby moved to approve the authorization for the President and CEO to execute a right of entry and hold harmless agreement, negotiate final terms, and execute a 50-year ground lease the southeast corner of McCarran Boulevard and Airway Drive, commonly known as Home Garden South, with Polis Development Company for an estimated contract value of $36 million based on the proposal submitted in response to the Reno Tahoe Airport Authority best and final offer solicitation for the development of Home Garden South. And that, Mr. Vice Chair, concludes my presentation, and we'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. I'll invite questions from the trustees. I have a question from Trustee Jay.
Thank you. Bar, welcome. Good to see you. Thank you. Quick question. It's a moot point almost, but I'm just curious. So you have 2 entrances, one coming down South McCarran and one on Airway Drive. Are there any medians there to prevent people from turning from the opposite side of the road?
There likely will be, but we haven't gotten into traffic studies yet, which is one of the things we'll be doing during the due diligence process. So those ingress and egress points you see on that site plan are conceptual at this point. Until we get that traffic study done, we won't know for sure.
I don't like those because, you end up having to do so many U-turns. And
Yeah.
I would hope that they wouldn't be in there, but I like the concept. It looks good. I think it's a great location. Certainly your reputation in the community is good. So, and I like what you're doing over Ranch Herod. That's really coming along nicely.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Are there other questions from the trustees?
Thank you. Nice project and great use of that piece of property. Thank you.
Mr. Toles, do you have anything to say?
I'm just really thrilled to have the opportunity to be involved in buying this land for a long time, and it's time has finally come where stars kind of aligned and it financially can support what we want to do. So it's exciting. It's crazy to think. I mean, Ann Morgan kind of held my hand 15, 16 years ago when we did Brookside, and so here we go again. Be nice. No, but it's, thank you, and both of you were really professional and just a real joy to work with, so it's great doing business with you guys, and it's great for Dave, who obviously has a long history here at the airport, and hopefully we'll make you proud, so that's our goal.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
Seeing no further comment, is the board ready for a motion? I'll ask for a motion then at this time.
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Richard J., second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? That motion will carry. On behalf of Chairman Sprouse, I want to congratulate you on your determination on this site. And further, I want to thank both Tina and Aurora for a fantastic effort to position this project at this time in the market. And it's here today because of your hard work. So thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
I just want to echo that. Thank you for a great presentation, Aurora, and both of you, all the work you've done.
Are there any further comments from the trustees? Seeing none, we can move on.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, sir. This will take us to item 7.2. This is a board memo. It's authorization for the president and CEO to execute a professional services agreement for design services for the Skybridge Escalator Modernization Project. Mr. Ted Ohm, I believe you're online.
Yes, sir, I am.
Please proceed with your presentation.
Thank you. Okay, good morning, Madam Chair, Vice Chair Carey, trustees, and Mr. Griffin. I am Ted Ohm, Senior Project Manager for the Airport Authority, and I have a short presentation on the Skybridge Escalator Modernization Project. The purpose of this action is to authorize the President and CEO to execute a professional service agreement for design services for the Skybridge Escalator Modernization Project at the Reno Tahoe International Airport with H&K Architects in the amount of $58,000. This is in support of the Reno Tahoe Airport Authority's strategic priorities. Number 3, facilities for the future. Number 4, safety and security. And number 6, customer experience. The current escalators were installed as part of the parking garage project that was completed in 1997. They're now 23 years old. These particular units have over 200,000 hours of runtime versus a useful life of 87,600 hours of runtime. And this particular definition of useful life comes from the FAA AIP handbook. The objective of this project is the preservation of infrastructure by modernizing and refurbishing these 2 public use escalators. Requests for qualifications for design services was publicly advertised, and statements of qualifications were received on July 16th, 2020. The following firms submitted SOQs: H&K Architects, VDA, and VTX. An evaluation committee comprised of RTAA staff reviewed the submittals and determined that H&K Architects as the most qualified firm for the project, based upon their experience and qualifications in providing similar services, the understanding of those services as detailed in the RFQ, capacity and ability to provide the RTA with those services, understanding of local Reno and RNO environments. Everybody here knows how special that is. Proven track record of recent successes providing similar services, and a proven track record of recent successes working together as a team. H&K Architects has been involved in significant academic, institutional, and commercial projects in northern Nevada since 1994. Notable RTA projects include the snow removal equipment building, the STED terminal and EOC, and the current ticketing hall study. H&K Architects has partnered with H&K Elevator Consulting on this project. HKA Elevator Consulting was established in 1973. They have several offices, including one in Las Vegas. HKA has completed several escalator modernization projects at other airports. San Jose, Fairbanks, Juneau, and Anchorage, Alaska are some of those. Funding for this project was from the Passenger Facility Charge number 14, as approved by the FAA. Total PFC funding for the project is $1,361,300, of which $58,000 is for design and bid preparation, leaving the remaining $1,303,300 for the actual modernization and other administrative costs. This item was presented at the September 8th, 2020 Planning and Construction Committee meeting. So it is hereby recommended that the board adopt the following motion. It is hereby moved that the board authorize the president, CEO, to execute a professional service agreement for design services for the Skybridge Escalator Modernization Project at the Reno Tahoe International Airport with H&K Architects in the amount of $58,000 and authorizes the president, CEO, or his designee to sign. And if there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Are there any questions from the trustees? Seeing none, I can call for a motion. Do I have a motion for approval?
Move to approve, Art Sperber.
Mr. Sperber has made a motion for approval. Is there a second?
I'll second, Richard J.
I have a second from Trustee Jay. All in favor say aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Are there any opposed? Thank you. That motion is approved. Thank you for your presentation, Mr. Ohm.
Thank you, sir.
We next move to item 7.3, which is an update of the budget for this year. Mr. Randy Carlton, are you available?
Yes, good morning, trustees. This is Randy Carlton, CFO. There's two parts of this presentation this morning. We want to begin with an update from the Air Services team on airline traffic and the outlook in that regard, which will provide a basis as we talk about the budget. So I'd like to introduce Hassan at this point. He'll go through a few slides and turn it back over to me.
Thank you, Mr. Carlton. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Excuse me, Hassan, this is our Vice Chair. Trustee Caraselli is on the phone, and if you press *6, you're able to speak now, Trustee Caraselli.
Do you want to test that?
Trustee Caraselli, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Thank you.
Finally.
Thanks, Hassan. Go ahead.
Please proceed, Hassan.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Madam Chair, Vice Chair Carey, Mr. Griffin, rest of the board, and everyone on the phone. We'll talk about a little bit about what our air service trends are. This presentation is very similar to what we saw last time around. We have updated some of the data and a couple of things that we see, some of the strategies in the airline industry. We can speak to that as well. So what you're looking right now is the passenger trends for the national average of USA. So these are O&D passenger traffic, and it doesn't include connecting travelers, but it does give us a good idea. And we've been keeping a very close eye on how the trends have changed over the last 6 months. And as you can see, with mid-April, we did see rock bottom, and then we gradually started to increase. But in July and August, it seemed like that the U.S. passengers kind of found their demand based on what the travel trends were. Of course, the Labor Day weekend was strong. We did see quite a bit of traffic going through, and you can see on the right bottom corner of the graph. Keep in mind, it's still about 60 to 70% below last year levels. Looking at Reno passenger traffic, very similar trends. However, if you look at the year-over-year percentage, slightly better than what we saw in the national average. August specifically was much better than what we saw in terms of year-over-year decline for the national average. We did see an increase, of course, at the end of the last week, and that was due to the Labor Day weekends. And on Friday and Sunday, we did see quite a bit of passengers going through the airport. As a matter of fact, we saw about 3,500 bookings, which is the highest it's ever been during this pandemic. As Melissa mentioned earlier, we do expect some decline in passenger traffic. So we'd like to really focus a little bit on clarification, as a matter of fact, on what Melissa alluded to earlier when she said that planes are full. Keep in mind, we have 9 airlines in the marketplace, and Southwest is a large carrier, of course. They have reduced their flights significantly in September and October. November, they jumped to 20, as Melissa mentioned. But keep in mind, folks, when we say that flights are full on Southwest, it's about 66% of the capacity, basically. So it's not the 143 seats. It's not the 175 seats on 800 aircraft. It's the 66% of the available capacity that is out for sale is full or close to full. So with that in mind, we're cautiously optimistic on Southwest Airlines. We had an excellent call with headquarters yesterday, and they did confirm that our bookings were slightly better than their network, so which is good news. So keeping in mind where we were back in March and April and how we started to climb up from there, we do expect August to have about 2,600 daily passengers, which is roughly anywhere from 80 to 85%, but we want to be very cautious about what numbers we throw out there because this does not include last day cancellations. May and June were actually very strong for us in terms of last day bookings, but over the last couple of months, July and August, we have seen last day cancellations. So it's roughly about 5 to 7% decline. September, looking at the first 9 days of the month, we do expect anywhere from 55 to 65, or it could go higher depending on what the traffic is going to be for the rest of the month. But at this time, excluding the Labor Day weekend, we're trending about at 2,300 plus daily enplanements. So how does it fall against the forecast for 2021? We do expect, like I mentioned earlier, we have 9 airlines in the marketplace. If one airline is doing better, this doesn't necessarily mean that it's across the board. So we do expect a decline in September passenger numbers, as we have already seen in terms of daily enplanements. So looking at post-Labor Day schedule, Darren mentioned last board meeting that we have never seen Southwest reduce down to 8 or 9 flights a day. The lowest it's ever been is when they first started 30 years ago, and that was 12 flights a day. So as you can see, some of the airlines will go up and some are going to go down, but we have started to see the trend. October 1, again, we don't know what's going to happen on October 1. That's the day when the limitations on CARES Act, off CARES Act are going to be lifted. So airlines are no longer required to offer minimum level of service. So they can go back to the transactional decisions. Again, keep in mind 30% of their operating cost is labor and salary. So that is going to come back, which means there's a possibility of increased fares. There's a possibility of high-density, low-fare market or high-fare, low-density market. So there are a lot of unknowns at this time. November is typically a low-season month, but it was very, very refreshing to hear from Melissa that we're booking stronger than what we expected in November. But then again, we're looking at about 20 departures a day. So there's still a lot of unknown. But then again, when it comes to mid-December, that is when we start seeing the holiday traffic come back. And looking at airline industry as overall, they're changing their strategies and starting new flights around the same time. Some are starting sometime in November to tag onto the Thanksgiving weekend travel, and then some are focusing more on the holiday traffic. So the theme across the board and the experts in the market, they're believing that the new normalcy is going to be defined sometime next year. However, we feel that with the tools that we have in our arsenal, we have a great community support, we have an excellent product to sell, and we do see that a lot of airlines are entering into markets that could offer a lot of leisure traffic. As everybody's saying, the leisure traffic is going to return. I'll give you a great example of one airport in California, that's Palm Springs. Over the last 2 weeks, we have seen 4 airlines start new flights. So that is something we're evaluating too, working with airline partners and our community partners to see what kind of, what is that market that we have not seen in the past and what could potentially work. But then again, there's a lot of unknown at this time, and there are many variables that can change traffic in October, November, and December and beyond. With that, I'll take any questions.
Are there questions from any of the trustees? Any comments, Darren?
Not yet, Mr. Vice Chair.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Please.
Thank you, Hassan. Good morning again. This is Randy Carlton, CFO. I have a few slides for the trustees and staff as an update on the budget. Thank you for the update on the air service activity, Hassan, and I'll be touching on our July budget results. July is our first month of our fiscal year. I'll be providing a high-level overview of how we did on our revenues and expenses. I'll also be providing some information on overtime by department, which was requested by Trustee Ferraza at our last meeting. I have a little bit of information on airline and tenant relief. Again, I'm tracking the budget watch items and we'll brief the board on those items. And then we're going to talk about a revision to the furlough plan that was discussed with the board in June. Airline traffic, when we look at it on a budgetary basis, comparing our forecast to our actual results, we are above budget, 56.9% with 63,039 enplaned passengers. That generates operating revenues of $3.24 million. That is above our budget forecast by 15.5%. And our operating revenues are broken down into two large categories. We have our airline revenues, which is comprised of landing fees and airline terminal rents. Those are approximately 2.1% over budget, better than we expected due to the higher airline traffic. And then the non-airline revenue category, or non-aeronautical revenues, largely comprised of revenues from parking operations, food and beverage, rental car agencies, and merchandise sold here at the terminal. Those revenues have exceeded budget by about 24.4%. In comparison, however, to last year, and this is something important for us to always look back and see how a particular period performed against the prior year, our operating revenues are off in total by 38.5% from where we were last year. We have another revenue category, non-operating revenues. We received $102,000. That's largely from our fuel tax receipts. And I want to just update the board on the status of our CARES Act reimbursements. We do have a reimbursement submitted to the FAA for $2.4 million, and that will be to reimburse us for costs associated with our debt service payments and costs associated with our specialized services needed to maintain the baggage handling system. Operating expenses are at $3.2 million for the month of July. That is under budget by about 14.4%. And when we look at where we were last year, our spending is down due to our cost reduction measures and level of vacancies. And our spending is 7.6% down compared to July of last year. And I'll just provide some comments here in context. In a normal year, we'd be looking at these results and saying, well, our revenues are above budget and our expenses are below budget. These are all good indicators, and they are. July was a good month. We expect August to be a good month. I want to just guard against some false optimism here that this trend is to be expected. Although we expect good results, or when I say good results, meeting our budget for the month of August, we have a long way to go before we can see the type of revenues and passenger volume that historically we would be seeing in the months of August and September and October. So we are very guarded in our outlook that not to expect these kind of results month after month. Overtime. This was a request by the board at our last month, and this chart presents a few things here. I'll describe it best I can. To the left, you'll have the departments, Along the bottom is the dollar amounts for the month of July. And there are 3 items here being observed. The green bar represents July overtime results from last year. The red bar represents our budget for overtime by department for this year. And then the blue line represents the actual overtime for the month of July this year. And you can see that our largest user of overtime is the fire department. They have minimum staffing requirements. They have some long-term medical absences. They have sick leave. And in those instances where there are vacancies, they are backfilled through the use of overtime. And that is the result for the month of July. Other departments are coming in relatively at budget, consistent with overtime usages of last year. And the one thing that I'll add when we talk about overtime is that we have not taken a close look at overtime and in terms of the budget adequacy on a department by department basis, and that's something that CEO Griffin has indicated is something that we want to take a look at and maybe reconsider the level of overtime, as well as what we can do to better control the use of overtime.
Darren has, Randy, just one
Yes.
moment, I believe Darren has a comment. Darren?
Can we go back? Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. So I just wanted to address the airport fire overtime, which just leaps off the page on this chart. Concerning to be sure, and certainly not sustainable. That's 1 month. I wouldn't be surprised if August doesn't look very much like this. We're dealing with multiple absences, long-term medical absences in the fire department where firefighters are rehabilitating from injuries and whatnot, and they're not able to work their normal shifts. And so those shifts have to be covered by other firefighters, which is one of the causes of the overtime. We need to do a deeper dive into how the overtime is being charged. Is it just those causes? Are there other reasons why we're incurring overtime? What are the firefighters allowed to do per their CBA that allows shift swapping that results in overtime? We need to do some analysis of that. And also I want to make sure we're budgeting correctly. I don't know where this budget number came from. What surprised me was that we budgeted less than what our actuals were for July of 19. So that's some more forensics are required there. Trustee Jay, yes, sir.
You mentioned injuries. Are those work-related injuries? And how did those occur? And, because I'm just trying to grasp this thing. I realize it's 1 month. I realize it's all this. I'm just trying to get a better feel for it.
Not necessarily. It's just injuries that require some form of physical rehabilitation. It could be a muscle strain from exercising or training. All the injuries are normal for firefighters, and there's nothing there that's necessarily being adjudicated by workers' comp. Some of it would be normally. So again, it requires some additional analysis. I was surprised. I see why the Chair Safraza asked for this. It obviously requires more managerial oversight, and this is something I'm working with Chief Tongate on right now with Randy, the finance team, and also Larry with HR, because when you're working through employee injuries, getting them back on the job full strength is a critical component to HR work. So I owe you more on this one, and we'll probably talk about it again next month when we see the August numbers. They'll probably look similar.
Can we also get a year-to-date?
Calendar year?
This year-to-date.
This 1 month into the fiscal year.
Or maybe look at last year, or maybe get some accumulating totals.
Yeah.
Because
Give it some context.
Prior year comparison or something, just see month by month.
Yeah.
I have a question from Chair Sferaza. Jessica?
Yeah, and I'll try with my voice, but I think on this one, I would really, Darren, look into this, because I think this is very problematic, and this goes back, my understanding is several months, when we have people out on the job on injuries for over 1.5 years. We need some oversight on this. I'd like this to come back to us. I won't get into it. My voice is shaky, as you can hear, but I would like this to come back to us, and maybe Ann too, on the injury component of how long we actually have somebody out on injuries for, and don't we have a workman's comp administrator who oversees all this, to follow up on Trustee Jay's question.
Yes, Chair Safraza, I hear you loud and clear. We will be back next month with more information, and that'll give us some time to do some additional forensics on this. The part about how long it's taking to return employees to full work status is probably the most important part of this conversation, and it's something that can take a lot of effort and due diligence.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just the typical light duty stuff that you're there and, you know, can come back on and be there, and then you don't have the overtime issue. And,
Right.
you know, I would say this is a monthly watch.
For sure.
For quite some time.
Can we add to that, maybe how many calls we're getting versus last year, and try coming up with some correlation? If we, you know, I expect if we have 30% increase in calls, we probably have a pretty close to 30% increase in overtime. But if we're getting less calls because of less traffic, I'd like to see some kind of comparison as well, please. Thank you.
Are there any other questions from trustees?
One more thing on this as well is how long we're letting people take time off for. And I appreciate Darren looking at the CBA. I think this has got to be looked at immediately. I think this has been going on for quite some time. So how long do we allow people, and how that's controlled, especially in our current budget situation? Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair.
Hearing no further comments, I'm going to go back to Randy for the next slide.
Great. Thank you for those comments. I've been taking notes, and we will return next month with some more information on that topic. You know, our budget watch items, you know, as indicated earlier on the presentation from the Air Services, that we are concerned about softening the airline industry and the reduced flight schedules. It is unknown yet what will happen come October 1 when the CARES Act funding to the airlines is lifted in terms of the restrictions on their maintenance of flights and personnel. We do have the ski season to look forward to, and we are hopeful for snow, and that we'll have passengers coming to the Reno Tahoe area to enjoy the ski season. That is our next big event, and it may be our only big event for our fiscal year. So we have a lot to look forward to, hopefully with a strong holiday ski season. Another indicator when we talk about our budget is our days cash on hand. We track that very closely on a month-to-month basis. We're currently at 459 days. This is the amount of our unrestricted cash divided by the daily burn rate of our budget. Generates or results in 459 days of cash on hand. It is declining when we compare it to where we were this time last year, 2.8%. It's slightly better than what I expected. However, when we look at our comparison to June, we improved our days cash on hand, mainly due to collecting the deferred payments. You know, if you may recall, we have we had a deferred payment plan. It was estimated to be about 4.6 million of a cash flow impact, and for the most part, those revenues have been collected. However, in the month of July, so that improved our position. Another thing that we continue to watch and monitor closely is the Hertz Dtg Bankruptcy. We do have outstanding amounts that from prior to when the bankruptcy was filed. We are working closely with Hertz. We have an open dialogue with them. They are they have committed to continue to pay the current amounts as we bill them. And when we look at the amounts that they paid for last year, and we're in this process, we call it the true up, where they pay us a fixed amount each month, and at the end of the fiscal year, we compare that to their actual revenues, and we reconcile the two. And if there's an overpayment by the rental car agencies, we refund that amount. And we're in the process of doing that analysis, and it looks as though that the overpayments from last year will offset those amounts that are owed to the authority. So we're in the process of attempting to collect based upon applying those overpayments to what they owe us. We're also getting some assistance from internal audit. They are carrying, helping us in our accounts receivable area, and that assistance is very much appreciated. Tenant airline relief, the board approved a 90-day deferral of concession fees and airline fees, and the fixed minimum annual guarantee amounts paid by the rental car agencies. That had a cash impact of about $4.6 million. It ended in July 31st. We've made some adjustments here and there. On a case-by-case basis, we extended terms to one airline, and we've changed the terms of for some of the smaller companies in the terminal itself to change from a fixed MAG, that's that fixed annual amount, to a percent of sales, and that has helped. We want to encourage these businesses to come back, open their doors, and it just didn't make much sense to require a larger payment when they're not open for business. So we've made a few adjustments there. Clear Channel was asked about last month, and they have made a number of relief decisions with their customers. I'll say that it is a proprietary relationship between Clear Channel and their customers in terms of how much and how often those payment relief terms are approved by Clear Channel. We know that they've approved over 45 different forms of relief for their customers, and that we know too that the advertising space in terms of the amount that's being purchased is down significantly. So we know too that the Clear Channel revenues are declining. A couple of comments on federal relief and what it can do for the tenants and airlines. There's a number of proposals. There's a House version, there's a Senate version to bring back CARES Act in some form, some fashion. There are competing versions. There's no consensus at the federal level as to which package is going to ultimately get approved, if anything. We know that the president has talked about using executive orders to quote unquote repurpose CARES Act. We don't know exactly what that means. We are following this issue closely. Our legislative advocate through AAAE, they are active in this arena. They are seeking, they're representing our interests by requesting the federal government, the legislators, to authorize up to $10 billion of additional relief for airports. And in addition to that, they are requesting that the legislature consider up to $3.5 billion to help concessionaires and airport partners. So we're working closely with our legislative delegation to track these matters as they develop. In May and June, we began to talk with the board and our employees about a furlough plan, and in response to the budgetary challenges that we were facing with declining passengers, declining revenues. And at that point, the context was that for the most part, the COVID pandemic would burn out, and we would begin to trend upward in the fall and climb our way out of the recession. And that just hasn't happened. Our outlook now is that the COVID pandemic will be with us for the foreseeable future. Granted, that line of sight is very short. We expect that there will be continued reductions in airline flights and airline personnel post October 1. And in discussing with this matter with CEO Griffin, our outlook has changed and our plan and our strategy is changing, and we want to recommend to the board, which will come to you in action following this discussion item, some preemptive measures to change the furlough plan. Instead of a plan that looks back to how we did on our revenues compared to budget, we are taking a preemptive step today with the approval of the board to begin the furloughs sooner and to put that into place in October. The furlough plan would encompass all management and CSP employees. That's about 112 positions, and it calls for those employees to take 1 day off per month from October through June. That's a 9-month period, 9 days furlough for all of those employees. We will be asking the board in this next item to amend our management CSP guidelines to provide the CEO with emergency powers to implement the furlough plan. We've estimated the fiscal impact, the budgetary savings that would be generated from this to be about $334,000. And also, even though that the furlough plan that would we're seeking approval today to implement would apply only to the management and CSP employees. CEO Griffin has indicated that he is going to seek participation from other bargaining groups. So I'll pause there and allow the CEO to offer any other comments on this topic.
Please. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Randy has done a really excellent job here summarizing our thinking around this issue. And as you can all tell just from today's board meeting, it is a really mixed bag of economic indicators right now to try and look forward and figure out what sort of future are we facing. There was a lot of good work done by this team and this board earlier this year in getting a budget adopted that reflected the information that we had at the time. So what we have done is continue to monitor those economic indicators, and I'm probably the biggest guilty party of wanting to move the needle on this, and that wanting to be a little bit more aggressive in our cost-saving measures. The reality of it is there's some reasons for optimism, but we also see reasons for great uncertainty in the flight schedule, the passenger levels. Revenues continue to be further down than our expense cuts, and you can't level those things out necessarily. But my goal here is to give us more wiggle room, for lack of a better term, in our existing budget, because we don't know what the fall is going to bring. We don't know when we turn the corner into 2021 what the situation will be. We hope for snowfall. We hope for more seats. We hope for good bookings. We heard from Melissa that November looks good for additional flights. We know that if the bookings aren't good, those planes won't actually arrive here. We had a more robust flight schedule for September 60 days ago, and the bookings weren't good enough. So the airlines are doing what they need to do to react to their booking levels, to fly routes that are profitable for them. And so my goal here is to, one, give us more flexibility, two, really communicate to the employees why we're doing this. I had 2 Zoom meetings yesterday with employee groups, walking them through the thinking on this. We don't make this decision lightly. We're literally making people take a day off without pay. That affects paychecks. That's very serious. You don't do that just arbitrarily. So We've put as much thought and science into this as we can, and there's a big component of art and understanding that a lot of our financial indicators are trailing, and by the time we get to November and December and see how we did this fall, we have less time to react in this budget. So this is a more aggressive move, gives us some more maneuvering room, and if the winter doesn't go as we like, then this will give us more cushion if we miss numbers. My ultimate goal here is to hang on to jobs. If we get into 2021 and we continue to be well below what we expected, this may be the difference between needing to move to the next level or being able to make it through this budget. And that's what I told the employees yesterday, that's the ultimate goal here. The nice thing about this program is that it can be turned off. If we do better than we expect and some of these things come to fruition, we're getting flights back, the snow's great, and we're feeling solid on our budget, then we can stop this program immediately. And we won't do it if we don't need it. But it's there. I'd like to move forward and execute it. And we will continue to talk to this board every month on how we're doing and how we think we're going to do next month, and hopefully not have to take any measures beyond this. So I'll stop there, let Randy continue, but I appreciate the level of detail and his summary here. It's right on.
Thank you. That was very well said. You hit that last part. Nailed it. That was it.
Yep.
That's exactly. I mean, the longer period of time you start cutting back, you should do less draconian cuts. And like you say, always turn them off.
Yep.
But if you wait till you're in this deep hole, you've got to do such major things to get out of it that it's unsustainable.
Yeah, and very painful.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Are there other comments from the trustees?
Just one, Mr. Chair, I would request an audit of the fire overtime. I mean, we're looking at putting people on furloughs, our employees on furloughs. We're asking them to basically take cuts, which I totally support the CEO's directive in that. But I want to see an audit of the overtime in that department. I think it's needed. That would just be, I don't know if we're making a motion today, but I'd like that to be part of the budgetary plan.
Chair Sprazza, this is an action item. If I could take some other input to see if there's other comments, and then if you wanted to make a motion, it is available.
Yeah. Trustee Ferraza, if I could just interject here, the budget update is an informational item. In regards to the furlough plan, we're just providing some background here. The next item on the agenda, 7.4, will be brought forward by Larry Harvey. We'll discuss the changes required in the management guidelines that will require an action from the board to implement the furlough plan that we've been discussing. So this item is just for information.
Just as a point, item 7.3 is listed for possible action on this budget update. While we could not take a specific action, it certainly is appropriate for members of the trustees that do want to make a statement or provide some input here. This is an opportunity for you to provide that as it is listed for possible action. Randy is correct that we are taking very specific action in the next item, but I wanted to be sure that Ann concurred with my thoughts there.
Yes.
Okay. Is there something that one of the trustees wanted to entertain? I have just one. I wanted to make sure we were working actively with our federal partners to ensure that there is good attention being paid to an extension of CARES Act funding to support our airlines. That deadline of October 1st is looming, and it's a very serious deadline with American Airlines, for example, announcing some 17,000 layoffs coming. So if we could just continue to use your good leadership, Darren, with our legislative partners at the federal level to push for the importance of that to our economy here in the state of Nevada, particularly here in the Reno Tahoe area where the coming season of snow and skiing and all those other things are so important to us. I would just ask that maybe a letter from the chair or yourself be penned to put our feelings known that we're fighting for that reauthorization. I know it's in a very difficult place in Washington, as everything is, but I think that our voice has to at least go on the record as fighting for our airline partners. Are there other actions?
Vice Chair, may I make a comment, please?
Please.
I just want to say that I absolutely support Trustee Sferraz's or Chair Sferraz's comments about the fire overtime. If she wants to make a motion, I support that. However, I did hear the CEO, Mr. Griffin, state that he is on top of this and he'll be looking into it immediately. So I just want to say thank you for that. I hear that you're planning to do that, and I do support Chair Sferraz's concerns here. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Rose. And I agree with the chair. Internal audit is a tool here that we may employ. I'm not sure if it'll be a formal audit. I need a little bit of time to go explore what our options are for auditing the overtime, since it's an internal employee time issue. But I would say internal audit is a tool that will probably be likely used here. I could ask Randy to comment on that as well, along with our HR team in understanding the workers' comp laws and the time away from work. In my past experience, days missed due to injury is a really important metric in any employer safety plan. I don't know how aggressively we're tracking that here. That's something that really puts a lot of pressure on management to get employees back on the job as quickly as possible through aggressive rehabilitation, making sure the medical care is closely scrutinized, and that both the employee and the employer are doing everything that they need to do to get back to a full work status. In a place like a fire department or a police department, light duty restrictions have an immediate impact on our ability to deploy our forces. It's less impactful maybe in an administrative workforce, but this is where you really see the pain. So you have my commitment that we'll be back to talk to you about this. We will use all measures and tools that we need to investigate it, to more closely manage it, and to make that overtime. The overtime, honestly, is a symptom of other issues in terms of workforce readiness. So I'll stop there, Mr. Vice Chair.
Thank you. Are there other comments from any trustee? Mr. Jay.
Yeah, I kind of want to review this furlough thing, and I know it's not an action item, but it looks like maybe we could, because are we saying that we'd have to wait a month to do these furloughs? And quick calculations, 1 month is roughly $37,000 in savings that we could be implementing now, and it might not sound like a lot, 37,000, but 37,000 is a significant number. So I'm kind of leaning towards, if we can make a resolution to enact these furloughs with the assumption that if things look better, we can always stop them. I think that was a great point.
So, Mr. Vice Chair,
please,
if I may, item 7.4, Trustee Jay, will be a board action that allows us to implement this immediately.
Perfect, thank you.
And Larry Harvey will talk you through that. I don't know if Randy is done with his presentation.
Just one last comment. I do have a meeting tomorrow with the internal audit manager. We're going to review the audit plan for the year, and I'll discuss a scope of work that will drill down into this overtime issue. Those are all the comments from finance.
Do we have a third-party administrator for workman's comp that reviews those claims on behalf of the airport?
Yes, we do.
Well, we should probably, I think we pay these people to do this, so we should probably have them report to us.
We'll certainly open a conversation with them on this topic. Yep.
Vice Chair, could I bring up one more point, please?
Please proceed, Trustee Rose.
Thank you. I just want to say that since I am the person that brought up the Clear Channel questions in the last 2 meetings, the fact that the report today showed that the number and the percentage was down significantly on retaining our advertisers would further indicate that they are not stepping up and doing what they need to do to retain advertisers. So I understand that they want the actual contracts to be proprietary. I completely get that. But can I get some confirmation that Ms. Iftiger or Darren are working with Clear Channel on a private nature to make sure that they are stepping up in appropriate manners, and advertising is based on the number of views, and our numbers have changed drastically and the prices have not, and I can tell you that. I'm 100% sure of that. So I just want to make sure, I get that they don't want to tell us what deals they're making publicly in a public meeting, and I'll respect that. But is somebody working with them to make sure that they are stepping up and that they are bringing programs forward so that we don't lose 100% of our advertisers?
Vice Chair Carrie, this is Tina Iftiger for the record. Sean Carpenter, who manages our concessions program, and I are monitoring this. We've had conversations with them. Everything they've brought to us requiring or requesting reduction in rates, we have approved. We have encouraged them to generate retention strategies. They are down 25%. And so we have encouraged them, and we spoke with them last week, and they said that every one of their clients who has asked them for a reduction or request to negotiate reductions has been afforded that opportunity. Happy to talk to you offline if you have information that may be contrary to that.
I do have information that would be contrary to that. They did do that, but it was for a short period of time. So yes, if you'd like to talk about that further, I'd be more than happy to do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
And for what I can add, I've tried to stay, for obvious reasons, at an arm's length from anything our business at Monarch Casino and Atlantis does in marketing at the airport. So I'm not involved in those negotiations or those discussions. But I think having negotiations is very different from doing what is right or what is fair in this environment to businesses based on the value that they're getting. So again, I'm not involved in the discussions, but I do understand from our team that yes, negotiations are happening, but they may not be happening and resulting in, frankly, agreements that account for the current environment. And that's all I think businesses can expect. And that's what I think we should expect from our partners at the airport. And again, not just for the Atlantis, but for all those who are marketing at the airport. And I'm making this message as a board member, and again, not as someone who's been involved in the direct negotiations. I have no interest in getting anywhere close to that. It's not appropriate, of course, but on behalf of all those advertisers at the airport, I think it is very important that Clear Channel works very closely to do what is right and what is fair for all advertisers, because this is an unprecedented time.
Thank you, Trustee Farahi. Any further comments by trustees? Seeing none.
Can we get that agenda item or Darren an update? Because I agree with Trustee Rose and Farahi. I'd like to see what our plan is with Clear Channel. I know Trustee Rose has brought this up the last several meetings, so if we can do anything with these advertisers because our traffic's down, I think that would be beneficial.
Mr. Vice Chair, we will certainly follow up on that and plan to bring more information next month.
Okay. Mr. Carlton, do you have any final comments?
Nothing else. Thank you.
Thank you. With the pleasure of the board, I'll move to item 7.4, which is a board memo seeking revisions to the CSP and management guidelines. This is being presented by Mr. Harvey.
Thank you, Vice Chair Carey, trustees. This is, for the record, Larry Harvey, Human Resources. And this is in reference to the board memo that you have in your packets, revisions to the CSP management guidelines to implement the furlough program that was brought up. And we mentioned this in the last time back in May. We need to make revisions to 2 of our guidelines. And it requires, and those guidelines are written to say that any changes to guidelines must be approved by the board. So we're bringing them to you today. The purpose is to make these revisions and to give the ability for the CEO to implement cost-saving measures in the event of a fiscal emergency. To give you a background, the guidelines are developed. Some of you are aware of civil service plan guidelines that are cities and counties that basically are drafted to just give guidelines to how we handle our employees on issues. They allow us a lot of ability to deal with reductions in force and layoffs and the ability to not have wage increases, which we've done all those things. That has ability to do that, but it doesn't give us the ability to actually take away. So when we talk about furloughs and things like that, we need to make a minor change so that we can affect this going forward. So I think, you've been brought forward to the furlough plan itself and what the financial implications are. Again, civil service plan, I'll get to that too. That really covers technically all our employees in a way. And that is, if something's not mentioned into a collective bargaining agreement, the civil service plan rules apply. There are, though, specifically about 50 employees who are what we call civil service plan exclusive employees. In other words, they're not covered by a collective bargaining agreement. They are professional administrative staff that are covered directly by this agreement alone. And those are the people we're talking about. And the rest are mentioned in the management guidelines. We have 58 people that are in that group that would be affected by these changes. When you get to the recommended motion, I apologize, it's lengthy, but the motion itself goes into changing specific sections of each of them. You'll notice that the language is identical with the exception of an additional paragraph or sentence for the Civil Service Plan guidelines, which I'll explain. It's hereby recommended the board adopt the following motion. It's hereby moved the board approve the proposed revisions of both the CSP guidelines and the management guidelines. For management guidelines, adding section C, section 13, page 7, under classification of exempt employees. Fiscal emergency, the president CEO has the authority to implement cost-saving measures relating to the compensation or the monetary benefits of employees covered exclusively by these management guidelines during a declaration of emergency occurred by the governor of the state of Nevada or the RTA experience a period of fiscal emergency. These may include actions such as furloughs, wage freezes, other similar actions. For the purpose of this section, a fiscal emergency shall be deemed to exist, in the second paragraph, if the amount of revenue received by the RTAA during the last preceding fiscal year from all sources, except any non-recurring source, declined by 5% or more in the current fiscal year from the amount of revenue received from all sources, and again, except a non-recurring source. That's taken right from an NRS statute on fiscal emergencies, what applies to public entities. Non-recurring source would be, in this case, the CARES Act. That's not able to be used as that. It's like, what are your normal revenues against your expenses? And of course, we all know that we easily meet the standard in this emergency. Under the next one, add the following section 8.95 to section 8, page 17 of the CSP guidelines. Remuneration on the basis of merit, efficiency, and fitness. The first two paragraphs are exactly the same relating to the civil service plan guidelines, with the exception of the last paragraph. In the event cost-saving measures are instituted, the 30-day notice requirement of section 1, 4.10 is suspended. And what that means is there is a provision in the CSP guidelines that if we make a change, and very often every few years we might make a change or ask for some amendment to these, that they have 30 days to see them, the employees. In a case of a fiscal emergency, we believe that that should be waived, and therefore that is added. Under the management guidelines, that is not needed. There is no provision for any 30-day notice. These have all been reviewed by staff, our CEO Griffin, Ann Morgan, Randy Carlton, and us to make sure we're comfortable with these and that they would allow us the flexibility for the CEO to take the actions as was mentioned today, and frankly, in addition to anything else we might see coming up that we might not expect at this time. So that is my report. Happy to answer any questions.
Hearing none?
Oh, no, sorry, I just
Vice
unmuted you.
Chair, I have one.
Yes, please proceed, Chairman.
Larry, did we have did the CSP employees get a COLA in July?
No, No.
So this would be the only group, I just want to put it in perspective. Not only did they not get the COLA when every other bargaining unit got a COLA, we're now going to put them on furlough. I mean, where they take, a day off. The only reason I wanted to mention that was because I support this move, but I also, and I know our CEO is going to work with our bargaining units, but I believe that everyone's got to step up to the table. It's just unfair to one employee group. Not only did they not get the COLA, we're now asking them to take a furlough. So I think at the very minimum, we should be asking our bargaining groups to also join in on this effort, because to go back to what Trustee Sperber says is people, keeping their benefits and their jobs, and we need the entire airport family to do this. So I just want to point that out on both ends. They're the only employees who didn't get a COLA, and they're going to be the ones taking the furlough. And so I hope the rest of the employees that are listening out there, part of a bargaining group, will also join in to help others save their benefits and jobs.
Chair Sferraza, thank you. I would tell you, one thing I'd like to add is that yesterday we had CEO Griffin met Zoom with all members of the CSP management folks to walk through this, to walk through the why, to understand it, very similar to some things we talked about with Hassan and Randy, and mentioned how this would work. We've created frequently asked questions so they understand the process and how it would affect them. We're very sensitive to what you're talking about. Therefore, we are meeting with each of our collective bargaining groups and asking each of them in their own way to participate. We understand that you might understand that it might be different. Example, I can't ask firefighters to take a day off. It just means more overtime. But I can go effectively work on their other pay issues and effectively try to get that at distance, that amount. So we are going to go meet with those groups, and we are going to request that exactly. And I do understand, and we did get some of those comments from our employees, and I totally understand that perspective.
Larry, how much is the pay, the decrease for the CSPs? What's the percentage? Is it 5%?
Roughly, this equals 4.6% on an annual basis.
So can we use the 4.6%? Sorry, can we use the 4.6%, I guess, and go back to our bargaining units and ask them? And I realize people don't like to affect their PERS, but maybe we ask those groups if they would give other types of concessions. So each bargaining group is coming up with that 4.6% number. Thank you.
That's exactly where we're headed.
Okay, this is Trustee Jay. Sean had to step out real quickly. Do we have another?
I just want to echo Jessica's sentiments. I completely agree that we really need to have, hopefully, everyone participate. It's very dramatic, and the more participation we have, the less difficult, as I said earlier, it will be on such a small group of folks.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? Mr. Jay?
Just a quick one, just again reiterating what Trustees Sferraza and Giannoli said. We're all in this together. We're all a family. We've got to pull together, work together as a single unit, because the more we work together, we're going to be stronger at the end of this. And I just, I'm hoping that we all see the big picture, work together. Working with, Darren, I'm very happy with this, and I think, we're going to get through this, and again, we're going to be stronger when we get through this. We will get through this.
Mr. Vice Chair, if I can make a...
Just one moment. I need to give Darren an opportunity to make a statement.
So first on this issue, I hear all the trustees loud and clear, and believe me, we all feel the same way about this. Beginning next week, I will be meeting with the represented groups, their business representatives or leaders, and walking through the financial information that we've shared with you today and expressing the need for them to join us, ask them to join us. This equates to a 5% reduction in cost of staff. Not all the labor groups are able to just start taking furlough days. First responder groups are not in the same situation, but we can join with them in partnership and look for ways to make an equivalent reduction in cost. And then fire, I don't mean cost and overtime because that wasn't budgeted that level, but other ways to reduce costs. And so I have done this in the past. I've had positive votes from represented groups. We're all one family, and those that can have been willing to participate. So I will certainly make that effort, keep you posted on that and our progress. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
Thank you.
Let me speak to that.
It's your call.
Okay, so just for the one other comment, just for the room and for those on this call, we have a security incident in progress in the terminal building. We're waiting to be told from the incident commander whether or not we need to evacuate the room that we are sitting in here. If we get that command from the incident commander, I'll ask the vice chair to adjourn this meeting, and then we'll have to resume a special meeting of some kind to carry this on at a future date. So we'll do that very quickly if it gets to that.
Thank you. We'll try and move the meeting along as quickly as we can.
Vice
This is agenda.
Vice Chair, can we just make a motion maybe, I mean, safety issue for this so that the CEO can move on, and then maybe we just adjourn the meeting and bring the CONRAC back? I have no problem doing that we want to do safety issues if there's anything else on here.
Thank you for your good advice, Madam Chair. I'll conclude item 7.4. This is an action item. Is there a motion from the board?
Trustee Carey, before you do that, I think it is important the record reflect that we asked for public comment from any employees who are entitled to have public comment at this point.
I appreciate that. I will open it for public comment from any employee.
Please post in the chat if you would like to make public comment.
And I'm just waiting for a few moments for an employee to have an opportunity to activate that button. So we'll just kind of stand by here. Darren, let me know when you think it's reasonable.
I think we're good to go, Mr. Vice Chair.
Okay. We've held for long enough. I have no comments coming in. At this time, I'll return to I'm having trouble hearing that person. Is that you, Jessica?
Yes, motion to approve.
Second by Trustee Rose.
Okay, I have a motion by Trustee Ferrazza, seconded by Trustee Rose. I have comment from Mr. J.
No, I just make the motion, so.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. No further comment. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? That motion will carry.
And Mr. Vice Chair, I would move that items under 8, 9, and 11 be moved to the next meeting, and that we just take public comment.
Thank you. I will follow that recommendation, and we'll move to public comment. Is there any public comment at this time? I've given an opportunity for Art to check the roll. At this time, we will move to adjournment. Thank you all very much, and Darren will be getting back to you as soon as he has more information.
Stay
This
safe.
meeting is concluded.